Football is a way of life.
This is football, chump. All you gotta do when a man gets the ball is tackle him. Get it? The man with the ball. Bring him down.
Football is about controlling that anger, harnessing that aggression into a team effort to achieve perfection. You fumble the football, and I will break my foot off in your John Brown hind parts, and then you will run a mile.
You block about as good as a jelly donut, you know that?
People can learn a great deal from a skillfully played football game.
What civilized person would play a game with the skin of an innocent pig?
Dad!
Let's talk about playing football.
Here's Danger Dean with the BNW in the PNW.
It's the Broncos Northwest podcast. Thank you so much for joining me another week. And what a week it was, or it is, I guess, following the big game, the Super Bowl on Sunday. We're going to get into that here in just a few minutes. My name is Danger Dean. If you'd like to reach out to the show, we've got a few different ways you can do so. Of course, social media, a few different options there. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You're going to find all of those pages at the BNW Podcast. Or you can simply search for Broncos Northwest Podcast on either one of those platforms, and you'll find us right away. If you'd like to shoot me an email, broncosnorthwestpodcast@gmail.com. And, of course, the phone line is always open for your calls, for your text messages. All you got to do is just use it. Leave a message. That number is 731-4-DANGER. Area code 731, the number 4-DANGER. All right, Super Bowl. We just we're a few days removed, and are we happy with it? Are we not happy with it? I don't really know if there was an outcome that Denver Broncos fans would really have looked at and said, I'm satisfied with that. I mean, at least on this show, I know we've been talking a lot about who we were going to root for in the game. Are we going to root for Tom Brady? The evil genius Tom Brady, who has been a thorn in our sides for years, decades, almost, just about? Or do we cheer for the Kansas City Chiefs, AFC West rival, for lack of a better term, the new Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes? I mean, this guy's probably going to be around for the next 15, 20 years. If he's going to spend that time in the AFC West, as Broncos fans, we've got many years of headaches to come. Very torn. Who did we want to win? I know personally, I'm not cheering for anybody other than the Broncos in the AFC West. For anything. Not for a ring, not for a game, unless there are like playoff implications for the Broncos. Then perhaps I would actually consider cheering for another team within the AFC West. Other than that, no way was that going to happen on my end. As a Broncos fan, you don't cheer for the Kansas City Chiefs. And those of you who were saying, hey, I'm not cheering for Brady, there's no way I'm going to cheer for Tom Brady. There's just no way. Listen, I understand. We've got a very sensitive, hurt part in our souls as Broncos fans because of Tom Brady. He wreaked havoc for years, but he's not the same Tom Brady. Now, I'm not saying he's not the same player, because he absolutely is. What we saw last Sunday was incredible. No, I'm not saying he's not the same player. What I'm saying is he's playing for a team that really doesn't have that many implications for the Denver Broncos anymore. He's no longer a part of the AFC. So those matchups, when they come, which will be few and far between, will essentially be meaningless. So the only thing that we have left with Tom Brady are just those bad feelings over the years of abuse that he's put Denver Broncos fans through. Yes, it has felt like abuse. That old man just putting a hurt on us for so long. But we have to get past that. He's no longer in the AFC. We don't have to worry about him anymore. I'm just so disappointed in Broncos country that was cheering for the Kansas City Chiefs. And don't get me wrong, I've got friends, really good friends of mine, Broncos fans, that were cheering for Mahomes. I've got family members that were cheering for the Kansas City Chiefs. I can't say that I've ever felt more betrayed. I wasn't really rooting for a team. Can I be honest? Can I say that? I was rooting against a team. I was rooting against Kansas City Chiefs winning back-to-back rings and winning their third ring, thus tying with the Broncos and the Raiders. with 3. Now, leave them in the dust. We're not cheering for that. We're cheering against Kansas City, and apparently it worked because, well, Tom Brady and the Bucs, they slapped him around a little bit. The worst beating that Patrick Mahomes has seen as a starting quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. How bad was it? Mahomes didn't even score a touchdown in the entire game. That would be the first time in his career that has actually happened. And of course, you can't really just blame Patrick Mahomes and the lack of production on him. Of course, that O-line was completely decimated. And of course, losing their left tackle 2 weeks before the Super Bowl was probably another nail in the coffin. However, you can't take away just how tough Patrick Mahomes is. And this is as much of a glowing review as I'm going to give him. It was noticeable towards the end of the game. He was limping around the field. He stayed in. He didn't come off the field, but we're learning within the last few days that he actually needs surgery on his foot and that rehab could be a few months. So something to keep your eyes on. Is it going to change the trajectory of how he has been playing and progressing as a quarterback, or is this just a small speed bump and he'll return to form? And something else that I think will be interesting to watch is what happens to Kansas City after this loss. Because I can't help but think of the Seattle Seahawks, okay? And I know we're going to bring up some really bad feelings here in just a minute. But Super Bowl 48, right? We had the Seattle Seahawks come in, just lay waste to the Denver Broncos. They won their ring. They were a powerhouse the year they won their Super Bowl. The next year, they go back to the big game, and they face who? Tom Brady. And then what happens? They lose. Tom Brady wins another ring. Do you see the point that I'm trying to make here? Last year, Kansas City, this powerhouse team, they win their ring. This year, they go back-to-back years. They run into Tom Brady. Tom Brady smacks them around, wins another ring. Now, if history has shown us anything, could this same thing happen to the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes? Selfishly, yeah, I would really love to see that. A decline in that man's play, even the playing field a little bit here in the AFC West, I am all for it. I would like to see a decline. And that is a very selfish fan thing to say, I'm sure. It can be looked at. He's a phenomenal player, and I'm not going to take that away from him. But gosh, do I want the Broncos to have to worry about him for the next 10, 15 years? No, I don't. And I'm not wishing injury or any ill will on the guy. That's not at all what I'm saying. I would like to see a little human in Patrick Mahomes, because that dude is he's a cyborg, right? One thing that we can hope maybe out of that game and that blowout win is a potential blueprint on how to beat Kansas City, how to stop that explosive offense. Did they lay down the blueprint? Did Tampa Bay show us how to beat Patrick Mahomes in the Kansas City Chiefs? At this point, now I'm excited to get to next season just to see if anyone picked up anything to slow down that train, so to speak. Let the waiting begin. Another question that I was asking last week on the show, I had David Harrison from the Locked On Bucs podcast, and I asked him about Tom Brady retiring. If he were to win the Super Bowl for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Tampa Bay, ring number 7, would he walk away from the game forever, right off into the sunset? A lot of people, well, maybe not a lot of people have been discussing this, but it's an idea that's been thrown out. However, after the game, Tom Brady addressed that exact rumor and said that he will be back. So look forward to another year of Tom Brady, probably winning the Super Bowl. He's the most impressive 98-year-old man I've ever seen.
He might look homeless, but if he asks you for money, just ignore him. It's Danger Dean and the BNW Podcast.
And just because the Broncos weren't in the big game doesn't mean they weren't in the news. The Hall of Fame nominees were announced on Saturday before the game took place, and we saw some familiar faces. John Lynch finally voted into the Hall of Fame. Big congratulations to John Lynch. And of course, no surprise here, Peyton Manning will be inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame later on this summer. What I thought was interesting about this, because we all knew Peyton Manning was going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. We knew this was going to happen. What I found interesting about it, though, is it took the committee a reported 30 seconds to deliberate on his induction, which for me sounds like it's about 25 seconds too long. But at least they got it right. Peyton Manning, John Lynch, yes, Denver Broncos heading into the Hall of Fame later on. That's going to be awesome. Huge congratulations to Peyton and John. I will point out, though, the way that they told Peyton Manning was kind of an interesting way to do so. They made him think he was recording a segment for his show Peyton's Places when he was surprised with the induction. But a lot of that to me, I'm like, he knew, right? Like, this wasn't that big of a surprise. Like, this kind of reminded me of when he broke the touchdown record with Julius Thomas. You remember that? And then they got the football, and then they played keep away with the football from Peyton Manning. Do you remember that? And then it came out later that Peyton Manning actually staged that. He's the one who came up with the idea for them to play keep away with the football if he were to break the record. So even those candid moments, Peyton Manning was still in control of. So I kind of have a sneaking suspicion that this might have been planned out pre-hand and he had some prior knowledge. Either way, still very awesome. Congratulations to Peyton and John Lynch for their votes into the Hall of Fame. And of course, we can't get through talking about the news without talking about the quarterback watch. Of course, Matthew Stafford no longer on the table. What other names out there are floating around as far as trades go? Because there are a couple. One of the bigger ones that's been floating around the last week, and I use that term big loosely, Carson Wentz. Yeah, apparently the Eagles trying to shop him around. A couple different teams seem to be interested, but you can rest assured that the Denver Broncos are not on that list. And if it were to happen that way, it would be such a dumb trade, I would say. So if you've seen anything with Carson Wentz being in the news as a potential quarterback looking for a new home, Denver's not it. Not much to worry about there. Deshaun Watson, however, there has been just nonstop chatter when it concerns Deshaun. My personal feelings on Deshaun Watson, he's not coming to Denver. I would love him to come to Denver. He would be an amazing addition to the team, but he's just not coming. I just don't believe he's going to be on the team. Kareem Jackson, who is on the team, who used to play with Watson in Houston back in 2017 and 2018, he has basically come out and said that Deshaun Watson is interested in playing for Denver. Essentially, it feels like he's trying to politic, right? Like, let's try to get Deshaun Watson to Denver, and it seems like he's kind of leading that forefront. He was on TMZ talking about it. Yeah, this story broke on TMZ. So does that hold any weight? Could it just be used as leverage? That's kind of more what I was thinking. Personally, with this whole thing, I feel like Denver is being used. And this isn't the first time this has happened with Denver essentially being used as a pawn to up the value of a trade for a player. I think that's the only thing that Denver is being used for here in this scenario. Because again, I just don't believe that Deshaun Watson is coming to Denver. Just because the price tag is too big. It's not that I don't want it to happen. I don't want that to be confused. I just think bringing him in would cause problems with players' contracts that are already in question. Some of these players that we are still trying to figure out, are they going to keep them or not? Another suitor, though, that is kind of a one to keep your eye on are the Raiders. Apparently, the Raiders have been reported as being completely interested in Watson, so that could be another scenario that would be, I'll say it, terrible if it unfolded. If the Broncos had to play Deshaun Watson twice a year and Patrick Mahomes twice a year, and then it's looking like Justin Herbert's going to be a good quarterback as well, it just seems like the Broncos are being left in the dust when it comes to the quarterback position. So that brings me back to what I feel like they're going to do, and that's just hit free agency. They're going to look for a veteran quarterback to compete with Drew Lock. and hopefully become the backup. Because if a vet was come in to push Drew Lock, and then that vet ends up beating him out, that to me is worst case scenario. So no, we don't want a veteran to come and beat Drew Lock for the job. We want him to come in and push, simply push Lock to that next level. And I know some of the names just don't sound attractive. Andy Dalton, Teddy Bridgewater, Cam Newton. I don't know, man. We don't want to see them as the starting quarterback, but maybe it could be enough to push Drew Lock to the place where he needs to be as a player, especially when it comes to playing in the AFC West with young guys like Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert and even Derek Carr, who can be a threat given the right day. The Broncos need to do better than simply going out into free agency and finding their starting quarterback that way. The front office looks like it's taken the proper steps to get to that point. We'll see if it holds up. How do you feel about the quarterback position? Let's get into that.
Don't just be a spectator. Join the BNW podcast. 731-4-DANGER.
Last week I asked you, what does Denver's attempt to trade for Matthew Stafford tell us about their feelings towards Drew Lock? Do they have long-term plans for Lock since they didn't trade him? Or are they ready to move on because they inquired in the first place? I think they shows that they do like Lock, but they're in no way married to him, per se. I mean, he's going to be on the team. I think the hope is to get through the 2021 season with Lock as the guy. This time you get him a full season with a full offseason to prepare. And they're not changing much as far as coaching goes. Again, Tom McMahon, like I've said in the past, is really the only thing that needs to change as far as coaching at this point. All right, you bring in proper competition. And when I say competition, it's not to beat out Drew Lock. You're not trying to find somebody who's better than Drew Lock. You're trying to find somebody that's going to push him, to elevate him, get him to the next level. That's the hope. And then to back him up in case Drew Lock gets hurt, which we did see through the 2020 season, then you've got somebody there that's ready to take the reins and hopefully manage a game and get a win. We get through the season and he flounders again, well, then the experiment's completely over, as is the Vic Fangio project. You throw that right out the window with the Drew Lock project. It's all one big thing. And at that point, you let George Payton, you let him take the reins, and then bring on the full-on rebuild, as much as that absolutely pains my soul. And again, that is worst-case scenario. How did you feel about it? Aaron, ready to move on. Deshaun Watson, no. I know that Deshaun Watson would be an upgrade to what we've had to deal with and had to watch as Broncos fans for the last few seasons. I know he would be an upgrade, but not at that price tag. There's no way I'd be okay with watching the team give up that much in order to bring on Deshaun Watson. As much of an upgrade as he is, I'm not saying that he's not an upgrade. I just don't think at that price it's worth it whatsoever. The Denver Broncos of Seattle Facebook page, got to shout out my people there that are always active and always willing to share their thoughts. Brandon said, go all in for Watson. He agrees with Aaron. Do whatever it takes. You got Watson, you can get the top free agents. Okay, so he's thinking if you can get one, that the pieces will fall, much like Peyton Manning did when the Broncos got him in 2012. Okay, well, from that angle, yes. But again, man, what you have to pay, you have to ask yourself, is it worth it to give up as much that they're asking for? And again, what they're asking for is 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and 2 young defensive players. So what are you willing to give up? I don't think it's worth it, personally. Again, I get the player is amazing, but not at that price tag. Little banter between Kyle and Brandon. Kyle said they weren't necessarily refusing to give him up. They just didn't want to also include the additional picks that LA eventually did. Unless we're either selling the farm for Watson or completely moving on by drafting a top 3 in this quarterback class, the team will bring in a veteran that will push for starting time like Winston or Bridgewater, unless of course someone else comes on the market like Rodgers. Locke is either going to up his game and beat them out, or he'll have to develop on the bench. It's a problem when you're like the 31st best quarterback in the league and you completely fall apart under that type of pressure. Kyle, those are names, and this is also what I wrote too. Some of those names are interesting. I hadn't actually thought about those before as being possibilities in that sense. Brandon said, what's the difference between Bridgewater versus Locke? Please look their stats very comparable. Also, you'd pay way more for Teddy. No thanks. If the price tag is too big, then no, you don't bring him in. It's quite that simple. You don't pay whoever you're bringing in a lot of money. If you can get him for a couple million to come on for a year, maybe two, then fine. Absolutely. If Bridgewater's going to cost that much, then absolutely not. You want him to, again, push Drew Lock to that next level. That's it. Any free agent beating him out is a loss, in my eyes. Brandon said, this reminds me of Trevor versus Paxton. Teddy isn't the guy. And maybe he's not. Just throwing some names out there, you know what I mean? I do go back to the Deshaun Watson thing. If Broncos fans think that Deshaun Watson is coming to Denver, I think they're borderline delusional. I think we have to really start getting ready to brace ourselves for the reality, and that is probably going to be like an Andy Dalton or something like that. I'm just looking for some consistency. Is that too much to ask? Just a little. If you want your opinion heard on the next episode, Assignment Broncos Country. With free agency looming, what are the areas of need that you'd like to see the Broncos address? And do you have any specific players in mind? A few ways to reach out. The social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all at the BNW Podcast, or simply go to the search bar and write in Broncos Northwest Podcast. It'll pop right up. You can't miss it. You can also shoot me an email, broncosnorthwestpodcast@gmail.com, and give the line a call. Give it a text. Use the number 731-4-DANGER. That's 731, the number 4, DANGER. Leave a voicemail, shoot a text message. Whenever you want. We'll go ahead and have your opinion shared right here on the Broncos Northwest Podcast. As always, thank you so much for joining me. Until next time, bye.